Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. It's the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for Zone Coverage, Bring Me the News, and the Brookings Register, as well as the Viking Age. My co-host is Adam Patrick, the managing editor of the Viking Age, and we do this every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. On today's episode, we're going to preview the Vikings and the Texans on Sunday. But as we know, it's a good old-fashioned revenge game. It's a revenge game for everybody, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we're going to talk about Stefon Diggs, but it's like Danielle Hunter, revenge game. Jonathan Grenard, revenge game. Cam Akers, revenge game. D'Amico Ryan's revenge.
Even Brian Flores,
tour. Brian Flores revenge tour.
He sued the Texans.
Isn't like Brian Flores like on a revenge tour against everyone?
Yeah,
technically,
yeah,
because he sued the league, so that would have mean he sued, but he specifically sued the Texans because
Texans, Giants, Broncos, and Dolphins, I believe.
We're not far removed from the Texans being like, we're gonna hire Josh McCown revenge game.
Yeah, right.
Because they were gonna hire him, and then they're like, oh my God, there's no black coaches in this. Steve Culley, you got it.
Well, that's when they hired Lovie Smith.
Yeah, well, they did it with Culley too.
Because Culley was just terrible. Like, he was even bad for just a filler.
The
Rooney rule. Yeah, it was bad.
The Rooney rule is good, but when it's situations like that, when they just hire guys, it doesn't help the guy that's getting hired. Like, sure, he gets an opportunity and everything else, but like it also, I'm treading carefully here because I don't want to get canceled. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, it did not help Culley to get that job because
it's very obvious when a team like that does it to do it, which is what Flores' lawsuit's all about, like sham interviews and stuff. It's very obvious. It's not, it's not like it would be like if a team interviewed Ed Donatel after the 2022 season, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a serious candidate," and it's like, well, no, you're just like filling some requirement just because you have to. And there's some like that, like, Leslie Frazier has been interviewed a bunch of times over the years since his departure from the Vikings when he was head coach, and he hasn't gotten. I would say he's probably been interviewed for head coach probably close to 10 times since then.
Yeah.
And he hasn't gotten any of those jobs. So it's like stuff like that just is examples of teams probably using the rule the wrong way. It has good intentions, but there's always going to be, unfortunately, teams that, abuse what, the rules and stuff like that. Because that's just how it goes.
And as maybe somebody who's not in those shoes, maybe it's a situation where, a guy like Leslie Frazier looks at it like, I might not get this opportunity at all if this rule didn't exist.
So you have to take a job.
So you have to go, and it makes sense because you never know. Like the Steelers interviewed Mike Tomlin as part of the Rooney rule, and that worked out pretty well for them.
Right.
But it should almost be the Mike Tomlin rule when you think about it.
Right.
But anyways, let's get on to the topic at hand. Stefon Diggs returning to U.S. Bank Stadium. Diggs was drafted by the Vikings in 2015, spent 5 seasons in Minnesota from 2015 to 19, was, of course, on the receiving end of the Minneapolis Miracle from Case Keenum. Case Keenum revenge game. He's backing up C.J. Stroud. Case Keenum, yeah. He was traded to Buffalo in 2020 as part of a trade that brought Justin Jefferson to Minnesota. And, of course, he was traded last offseason after he basically wore out his welcome in Buffalo and also cap casualty stuff. How should Vikings fans react to Stefon Diggs' return to Minnesota?
For fans, I don't think he should be booed. He still might, because people just think he was a cancer and a diva, and he has some of those characteristics, but when it comes to fans, I don't think he ever did anything to he never blamed the fans for anything, or really even the team. I think his biggest problem was with Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman and how he was used in the offense. And he just wanted to go to a place where he wanted to be the top wide receiver, and he did, and he produced at a very high level. So he got what he wanted, and sometimes you have to do that if you want to get to a higher level, whether it's you go about it a good way or what people perceive to be a bad way. But yeah, he gave Vikings a lot of good memories, even beyond the Minneapolis Miracle. He had a lot of fun moments. I always enjoyed Stefon Diggs. I would say he was probably my favorite player when he was on the Vikings during his time. Just really, he's like the modern day version of what you would probably describe as the typical like top wide receiver, where you know he's gonna complain probably if he doesn't get the ball enough, but when he does get the ball, he's gonna produce, and then on the sidelines, he's gonna, you know, he wears his, you've heard this before. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not going to hide his emotions. And I've already seen so many clips, probably within since he's arrived at the Texans, whether it's the preseason or last week, or whatever, of like him like kind of shouting on the sidelines, and people interpret it, oh, he's arguing because he's not getting the ball. And it's like, or he's a team captain and he's trying to motivate his teammates and keep their head in the game. Because there's been clips of where we thought that Diggs was like yelling at people on the sidelines when he was with the Vikings, and then like NFL Films picks it up and he's like talking to Cousins like, I got you, and stuff like that. Like, so I feel like he gets a bad reputation, but he also does some of that to himself when he does interviews with like GQ and whatever, and talks about how the Vikings did him dirty by sending him to be with a playoff team so he could be the number one receiver for one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So, I don't think he should be booed, but it's Minnesota nice, so maybe they won't, but I'm curious to see what happens, because I know there's some people who just view him as like this bad guy who was terrible. It's like he really was. He got pissed when the Vikings extended Kirk Cousins, which a lot of people did.
Yeah.
So like, and looking back, like he wasn't wrong. So I'm curious to see how Vikings fans react when he. I guess the chance to boo him would be when he probably catches a pass, but we'll see.
I know overreactions are saved for Monday. I would boo Kirk Cousins before I booed Stefon Diggs. Like I
You
would,
would,
because
yeah. I would too, but like,
I mean, Kirk's gonna get his tribute video. Like maybe they'll have the Minnesota Wild.
I mean,
Minnesota
Wild
Wild
Adrian Peterson get a tribute video?
I'm sure he did.
Washington, I think,
or he might have gotten with Washington. Yes,
I think so.
I was at the game when Adrian Peterson returned to the Vikings as a member of the Saints, and he got booed. Like, because people, I mean, he was coming off. What was
Pretty sure he got booed by the Saints that game too.
Right? Yeah, Sean Payton booed him to his face, like, "Boo, you suck." But I mean, he was coming off that child abuse scandal 2 years ago, and then he wouldn't rework his contract, and I think it was a bitter divorce, not to the level of Diggs and the Vikings. Like, we've talked about this before. There's a generation gap between Vikings fans now, and somebody who's 38, like I am. It's hard for me to process younger fans and younger people sometimes, because it's like I've seen a whole bunch of stuff. Those fans, maybe their first introduction to Vikings football was that 2017 team where Diggs catches the pass from Keenum, and then they see Diggs force his way out, and they're like, we could have had a dynasty. Why did he leave? And we got Justin Jefferson for you, and we don't need you anymore. And maybe part of that's true because the Vikings, would you say they won the Buffalo trade?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, if the Bills,
Jefferson's younger, he's better.
Yeah. If the Bills won the Super Bowl, maybe it'd be, I mean, I think it helped both teams.
Oh, yeah.
Like, both teams can look at it and be like, it served a purpose. The Vikings got something for a guy who didn't want to be there anymore, and the Bills got a number one weapon for 5 years?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good trade.
Yeah.
I think like guys like you and me, we can compare it to like when Randy Moss left, where I don't think Moss was the one driving his way out of Minnesota. I think a lot of it was a bleep you from Red McCombs for not
right before he sold the
giving,
team.
not giving him funding for a public stadium or a new stadium, I should say. I think a lot of people see that as Diggs didn't want to be here. If you're not here, like it's kind of like how I see Cousins. Like if you don't want to be here, screw you, man. Like that's how I feel. And the Cousins thing too is complex because it's also, there was this bill of goods that never got sold. Stefon Diggs outsold his bill of goods. He was a 5th round pick. He worked his way up through the ladder when the Vikings were trotting out Charles Johnson and Mike Wallace and Greg Jennings at wide receiver. He's one half of the most memorable play in franchise history, arguably. And when he was a Viking, I got a freaking picture of Stefon Diggs on my wall back here. He's probably one of my favorite Vikings of all time. And, I think, I think what the Vikings will do is they'll play a clip of the miracle and maybe like another highlight or two. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know.
He's on injured reserve, so I don't know if he'll travel, but
yeah, it would be kind of cool. Like, hey, Stefon, Case said something to you.
Zimmer's not going to be there, so.
Well, and that's the other thing too. I think the bad blood has kind of just passed over because Rick Spielman's not there anymore.
Right.
Mike Zimmer's not there anymore. Kirk Cousins isn't even there anymore. Like Harrison Smith.
Adam Thielen.
Yeah. Harrison Smith's the only guy that's still there. So, and he talked very glowingly about his time in Minnesota when he was talking with Texans reporters.
Too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, they'll probably play the miracle. They'll probably have some other highlights mixed in, and then they'll go, welcome Stefon Diggs back to Minnesota. And, with that Alan Barr or what, I can't think of his
Alan Roach.
Alan Roach, yes. Just booming through US Bank Stadium. And everybody, yay! And then I'll cook us for 200 yards probably. But I don't know. I don't think he's as much of a villain as he is. Vikings Jerome says, just don't let Diggs score a touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last game he played against the Vikings was in Buffalo, and he had 12 catches for 102 yards. Yeah. So,
but it was overshadowed.
Wait, Diggs is coming back. That's
breaking
baseball
news.
For Eve 6.
Breaking news.
Hope he's not a Twins fan, by the way.
Did Thielen not do the same thing though as Diggs?
He did. I mention that all the time. The only difference is Adam Thielen went on a podcast and started crying to Kirk Cousins to give him the ball. Like that.
Diggs had a cold. That's why he missed practice that one time.
If he doesn't skip practice, do people have the same opinion of Diggs? Adam Thielen screamed about not getting the ball too. He went to Carolina for more opportunities, remember?
Because of Andy Dalton, actually.
And now he's starting.
Yeah, he got his wish. I don't know, because Diggs he had his own way, especially on Twitter and stuff when it was Twitter, but of just putting out his infamous cryptic messages. I think right after the news came out that Kirk Cousins got an extension in 2020, that's when the famous time for a new beginning post from Diggs came out, and he would do that a bunch of times too. And his problems with the Vikings, I think, were actually they began to form even earlier than that missed practice. I think he skipped some OTAs a few months before that, and people were like, "Oh, it's just voluntary, so it's no big deal." But apparently it was a big deal because he wanted to be more involved in the offense. But we know Mike Zimmer wants to run the ball all the time. And then Adam Thielen kind of emerged as Kirk Cousins' top target. So Diggs knew he was better than what he was being able to allowed to be with the Vikings. And he didn't want to have his ceiling, be there. He knew he could get better. And he just had to. He felt he had to get out of there to reach his goals, and he did. And you know what? Kirk Cousins did the exact same thing. He thought he was worth more than what the Vikings were willing to offer him this season, and he went to the Falcons and he got what he believes he is worth, or at least what he believes he could earn on the open market. But everyone's like, "Oh, Kirk Cousins, he's a businessman. He's a great businessman." And then Diggs is just like, he's an asshole. So, fuck him. He just wants all the money. And it's like, what? So yeah, yeah. I love Stefon Diggs when he was on the Vikings. I also love writing about him when he causes trouble with other teams too. So it's enjoyable on both ends for me.
It's certain players are click machines
Yeah,
in Minnesota.
he's like a TO. He's like a modern
Yeah,
day TO. Not
it's
not to
like,
that extreme. And TO wasn't even extreme. Yeah, TO was like everyone thought he was this bad guy, and he literally never got in trouble off the field. It was always just like him being ultra competitive on the field, which is what Diggs is guilty of.
Randy Moss.
Yeah, that's
Again, like
well,
there are some people who hate Randy Moss because he's like, I play when I want to
yeah,
play. How dare he? How dare he run over a rent-a-cop? How dare he
yeah,
smoke weed?
yeah,
How dare he? Yeah, God, he squirted a official with the water bottle. Oh, he fake mooned the crowd. What a disgusting act. Like there are things that you can rip Randy Moss for, but I mean, a lot of them weren't that bad. It wasn't beating your kid with a switch, which, I mean, there are worse things that can
yes,
happen.
yes.
So,
Yeah, and that player is still worshipped by a bunch of Vikings fans. So, but yeah, yeah. Randy Moss did a little bit more off the field stuff than To. That's for sure. Um, but yeah, now some of those moments are viewed as iconic, like Stray Cash Homie and the Moon and stuff like that.
I want to address one more thing because Vikings Jerome, thank you for commenting, Jerome.
Yeah,
We appreciate anybody who comments on the show. But he goes, Diggs got a big head after that catch. No, he didn't. That's not it. And I know he wanted to be a number one receiver and everything else. Yes, that is part of it. But he was also in a situation where he saw the Vikings spinning their wheels before anybody else.
right.
Like when that tweet, the time for new beginnings or whatever, that came right after the Vikings linked up with Kirk Cousins because he made the $200 million throw in New Orleans. So, I mean, I don't think it was a big ego. You saw it all the time in 2018. He played that role and he was mic'd up in that Saints game, the same one he threw his helmet where you mentioned it. He went up to Kirk Cousins and said, I got you. All right. Yeah. Like, trust me, which is a big issue with Kirk Cousins all the damn time, that he didn't trust his weapons because, it's too coverage. Justin Jefferson, 4th and 8. Better check it down to TJ Hawkinson.
He was watching
He
was watching Mel Kiper yesterday. I mean, like, yes, I agree.
That I've been trying to tell people that 2 high safeties, you can't get past that. Where it's
eliminate
hey,
safeties, 9 players.
Hey, if you run the ball, maybe they'll come down in the box.
Mike Zimmer's like, I know the answer.
Like, you just never throw. Like, why are they even putting 2 safeties back there? Yeah. Let's look at some of the other revenge games out there. You got Stefon Diggs, obviously, Danielle Hunter. Keenum, you said, is injured, so he's probably not going to have a revenge game unless like he flies out on the field like Bronson Reed or something. Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, Cam Akers. Who is
Shaq
the most? Shaq Griffin. Yeah, I forgot about that. Who is the most likely player to have a revenge game on Sunday?
I think Blake Cashman, just the way he's been playing, kind of with his head on fire this year so far, just all over the place. I'm sure Jonathan Grenard would like to get a sack, but he's been doing really good, just generating pressure. And sometimes a lot of times it's more valuable than getting a sack. But Blake Cashman, he had an awesome game last week. I think he had 13 tackles. He had a sack. He deflected that pass, I think, that ended up in Josh Metellus' hands. He's made a big impact on the Vikings so far, and I think he'll continue to do so on Sunday. I would think it's not a player, but I mentioned it that Brian Flores. This is it's a revenge game for him too. So I think he's going to want to make a statement against a team an organization that he thought in his lawsuit, he said retaliated against him for filing the lawsuit, because I believe he interviewed with the Texans before he filed the lawsuit, and then he filed it, and they were like, "Oh, we're not hiring you. We're hiring Lovie Smith." So I'm sure he'll have some sort of motivation to shut the Texans down. And I would like to hope that Danielle Hunter doesn't have a revenge game, a good performance, or Stefon Diggs, but they're going to have some extra motivation too, and they're used to that environment in US Bank Stadium. Danielle Hunter more because he was there longer, and more recently, where Stefon Diggs he hasn't been to US Bank since
Stefon Diggs.
the end of the 2019 season, regular
Yeah.
season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a while. So yeah, I think Brian Flores is going to be the one that's going to be like, all right, guys, we're going to destroy the Texans because I have a bone to pick.
I think the most likely to have a revenge game is Danielle Hunter. And by the way, I just want to point this out. Why does every national outlet insist on calling him Danielle? Like everybody at Pro Football Focus calls him Danielle Hunter. And I don't know if there's like a meeting like, hey, let's fuck up his name.
That's his name, isn't it?
Isn't it? Or Danelle. They call him Danelle Hunter. I'm sorry.
I was like, you're pronouncing it right. What's the problem?
What are you doing, Chris? No, they all call him Danelle Hunter. Like everybody at Pro Football Focus or worked at Pro Football Focus.
Or remember that stupid fantasy analyst who's like, I'm calling him Danielle. Yeah, that's right. I did it. Yeah, okay.
Somebody did that?
You remember that stupid guy who also he had the terrible commentary on Kyrie Jackson too, about how he was like a bad person. That same guy was like ragging on Danielle during the offseason because he wanted to get more money, or like before he signed his extension or whatever before last summer. And he was like, I'm calling him Danielle. Yeah.
Like, TikTok makes people do dumb things.
I'm like, please say that to his face. He will strangle you with his forearm.
He won't. He'll do it with like his finger, just like all right.
Yeah.
It's the deal. It's
veins.
The deal.
He's got veins bigger than everyone's neck.
Like what irritates me as somebody who has a degree in broadcast journalism and somebody who is a media member, pronouncing somebody's name incorrectly after the organization has a media guy to help you with those things. This isn't like
first year either.
Yeah, this isn't like high school football in South Dakota, where you don't know anybody's name and nobody submits the stats. Not that I'm bitter or anything, but like it's out there. Like pronounce it correctly. People call me Schad all the time, like because of my last name, and I'm just like, a lot of times I just go, okay. Like I had a friend. One of my friend's parents always called me Chad. Like she could not get it down, like out of her brain. And
Chad.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, but it is what it is. But Hunter, revenge game. The thing with Hunter and the reason he's succeeding is because he's back to the way he played under Mike Zimmer, where he had two jobs: get after the quarterback, stop the run. Yep. There's none of this dropping him back in zone. There's none of that. I mean, Brian Flores kind of used him that way last year because he had 16 and a half sacks, but he's at his best when he's rushing off the edge and he's got two jobs in mind. He's not a linebacker. He's not any Ed Domentel pipe dream or whatever. He's good at getting guys in the backfield. So I don't know. I know the Vikings have Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. I know Will Anderson Jr. is also a problem on the edge.
Yeah.
I could see Danielle Hunter having a couple of sacks. Just he knows the tendencies of those guys. And, I don't think it's enough to train wreck the game, but I could see him, coming back, having a couple of sacks. Maybe the thought, and I mean, the whole split up there was kind of amicable. It's like, I'd like more money. We'd like more players for the money you would make. Okay, I'll go home. Like nothing wrong, but
and they had 34 pressures against the Bears last week. So I think that had more to do with the Bears because I think they had like 7 pressures against the Colts the week before. But still, they have a talented pass rush with Will Anderson and Hunter, and D'Amico Ryans is a good defensive coordinator too. So, and they got Derek Stingley back there as well. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure on Sunday.
Do you buy anything into Caleb Williams like walking away from CJ Stroud?
I
So I saw that
I
kind of
just
went
think that's
everywhere.
his. I think that's his attitude, and it just rubs people the wrong way. Similar to Cam Newton, who would put a towel over his head when he was playing poorly, or the team was playing poorly, or I think what Kyler Murray does something similar to. People just have different ways of reacting to losses. Not everyone's just like you know can keep their chin up and just whatever. We'll just move on. People, these players are in it to win and lose, and they hate losing. You come from a college program. Well, I guess USC wasn't that great last year, but most of these guys are used to winning their entire football career, and then they get to the NFL where they're picked by one of the worst teams in the league, and everyone assumes that they're just going to turn things around immediately, and they struggle. Talking about Bryce Young too. Um, so yeah, I just think that's people just don't like to see guys moping around or whatever. But I feel like a lot of people would act similarly in the same situation. But I don't have a problem with him. He didn't want to. He didn't. He didn't want to hear advice from somebody after they just lost in a game. I understand that C.J. Stroud was trying to keep his head up or whatever, but
Well, the first thing he said to him was like, "Man, you got to stop taking those hits." And Caleb
he's
was like, "I know, bro, I know." And he's like, "No, no, come here. I want to tell
yeah
you." Like, it was just kind of a weird, he was just, it was
right.
kind of the
He
icebreaker.
would have
Like,
been. He should have been like, yeah, I would love to, except I don't have anyone to block for me. So
right. Yeah,
um,
that's like all that cap space and nobody to
it's
block
like you
for him.
remember David Carr, who used to play for the Texans. Yeah, why don't you talk to him about avoiding those hits?
I'll just say it right now. Caleb Williams is going to be fine. Like
Oh yeah,
I think right now it's just a lot of
he's a rookie,
rookie. How many interceptions did, not comparing him to Peyton Manning, but I mean,
right?
this is just something you can refer. How many interceptions did Peyton throw in his rookie year? Like,
Yeah.
it's a
Who
bonkers
says
amount.
Patrick Mahomes would be as good as he is now if he started immediately in Kansas City? He got to sit for the entire year and only play one game.
Now, as Vikings fans, we kind of hope he is what he is who we thought he was, in the words of Denny Green. But you know, I
Yeah, I don't.
everybody's freaking out because he paints his nails and has a pink purse or something. I don't know, but
Um, I like when all the teams in the NFC North are good. I don't really enjoy when everyone sucks, and then because then
remember the
when you lose to them, then it's like you just lost to the Lions, or you just lost to the Bears.
well, remember that game? I think it was 2019 when the Vikings played the Lions at home, and it was just the most boring
The
NFL
overtime,
regular season.
Golden Tate.
No, it wasn't even overtime. It was just like a
Oh yeah,
solid
they
ass
sacked him nine
kicking.
times.
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
they
just
sacked
like
Stafford 9 times. Yeah.
it's like when you play on like freshman level on NC.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I
just
should maybe turn the difficulty up. I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
move Tulane to the Pac-12 or something.
yeah. Like it's more as much as I would like to be like, oh, I wish the Vikings had the easiest schedule in the world. It's more enjoyable when they get to beat teams that have good players. Like this win over the Niners. Was it more enjoyable because the Niners were better? Yes, it was. It was way more enjoyable than when they stomped on the Giants and Daniel Jones in week 1 because the Niners have much better players than the Giants, and they're defending NFC champs. So if the Bears start to be good with Caleb Williams, and the Packers are good with Jordan Love, and the Lions are good with what, Hendon Hooker, one of the
26-year-old Hendon Hooker, by the way.
right?
But he's only
Yeah,
in the
he's a
second
year
year.
he's a year younger than Jared Goff now.
Better knees than Michael Penix, though.
That's
Well,
it's not
actually,
someone you should be comparing yourself to. But yeah, it's more I guess fulfilling when the rest of the division is good because it's also more enjoyable when you have those annual Vikings Bears Monday night games. It's not just like, oh, I gotta watch the Bears on Monday night again. So yeah, I think he'll be fine too.
Well, I mean, if you're high on Caleb Williams or maybe higher on Caleb Williams this weekend, maybe you can throw a little coin down at underdog, huh?
That's right, Chris. It's the greatest time of the year. Again, that's because football is back. And luckily for us, it's here to stay until February because with Underdog Fantasy, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, and more. I've actually been using Underdog Fantasy and app for the app and website for multiple years. Their app is super easy to use. And if you want this week, you can make picks for Sunday's Vikings game when they take on the Texans. They've got a ton of player stats to choose from. If you think the Vikings defense is going to pick off Texans quarterback CJ Stroud multiple times, you can pick higher than the interception value that Underdog has listed for Stroud. Or if you think Justin Jefferson is going to score a touchdown for the third straight game, you can pick higher on what Underdog has listed for his combined rushing and receiving touchdown value for Sunday. So lots of stuff to pick from. Bottom line, making picks on Underdog is straightforward and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com and sign up with our promo code, the age, that's one word, THEAGE, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make a deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code The Age to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Now, you must be 18 or older to play, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply and void in Colorado. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text Next Step to 533-342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-New York or text Hope NY. I'm sorry, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text Hope NY 467-369.
I've got a lot of entries with Adam Thielen higher receiving yards, higher Andy Dalton, man.
Yeah.
It's going to make all the difference. I feel bad for Panthers fans. It's like
For the fans,
owners walking around at practice like, yeah, I hate losing. We're going to go to Andy Dalton. It's just like, all right.
I feel bad for the coach. I feel bad for the players. I feel bad for the fans. Has there ever been somebody to buy a team and sell them 5 years later? Because I think people are already over David Tepper. He's like the new Daniel Snyder, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, without
was it Marge Scott? Was she the owner of
Marge Schad?
Marge Schad? Yeah, wasn't she the owner of the Reds, but not for a while,
a
handful of years?
Yeah, she got banned.
Right,
I
I
think
know why
she
she
got
did.
banned for life. But
Yeah.
there was a story about Marge Schad that when the Reds won, I think it was the 1990 World Series in 4 games, she was mad that they won so soon because they didn't get the gate for another home game.
Right.
So
yeah, that sounds like Tepper.
Yeah.
Tepper tantrum.
I don't know. Tepper might be excited that the Panthers actually won games, but they won't as long as he's jumping in and being like, I hate losing. Don't get this rookie. They screwed that up so bad. I mean,
how good would Bryce Young be with Kevin O'Connell?
That's a great question. I mean, his height is one thing, but
you coach around it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Kevin O'Connell doesn't look at shortcomings. He's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
How can we use it to our advantage? And they'll look to use it to their advantage this Sunday when they host the Houston Texans. Noon, US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Game is on CBS with Ian Eagle, Charles Davis, and Evan Washburn on the call. Could be worse. I like Ian Eagle.
The B team. Yeah. for CBS.
Yeah. I hate that term with B team's actually good in football though, because there's like D team. There's like who's
Jonathan
the D
Vilma.
team on Chris Myers?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Chris Myers and
for CBS, who would it be?
Jay Feely would be the color guy.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't know. I don't even know who else they have for CBS. I know for Fox it would definitely be Vilma, Kenny Albert. If you get those guys, you're like, oh great, no one's watching this game.
I love how video games have like different commentary sets now. Like if you get the wrong one, you're like, man, I'm fucked.
Yeah. But Kevin, well, like you said, like you don't like the B team. Like Kevin Harlan, he's great. He's an A team announcer for the NBA. Why can't he be A team for NFL?
I guess Kevin Harlan is technically the B team for CBS because Nance and Romo are A team.
Yeah.
Harlan's
I prefer Harlan over Nance and Romo.
I do. Yeah. Kevin Harlan. I loved. This is totally going to the weeds of broadcasting, but it's fun.
Like Burleson didn't do the highlight.
Yeah, he's like, I can't hear you, and Kevin Harlan's like, okay, here we go, Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. He did that he does that with like when there's like a squirrel on the field too.
Yeah,
just
ultimate improv guy.
He's very good at his job.
I like the guy I don't like. I know a lot of people like Spiro Ditas because he just sounds like and I mean his excitement does go up, but like half the game he's like, and that's another run by the Vikings. Like, Joe Tessitore either, who's been killing it on Monday Night Raw. But is he still doing football? I don't think he's doing both now because he was really good at college football.
Yeah, he did. He did what? He did the Georgia Tech game in Florida State. He might be doing some ESPN, but I don't. Maybe not. Maybe no. He's just doing wrestling and maybe some other boxing stuff or whatever. I'm sure they're paying him a lot to do Raw. And is he switching over to SmackDown when they go?
Yeah, Netflix? I believe that's because they'll have McAfee and Cole when they go back to Netflix. But you don't like that?
I don't like McAfee.
Oh, I love McAfee. Actually,
it's so annoying.
It was
funny. It was funny at first, but like Stick is just like I don't know.
It's like Romo. Like it's annoying overall, but then he has like one-liners. You're like, okay, that was good. Like,
like last
week wipe that's already been wiped.
Yeah. When they were at South Carolina last week, and he's like, "Oh, this is the only time I can say cock. We love the cocks." And it's like, okay, all right, we get it.
Yeah. Anyway,
I say that
Texans favored by 4.
Few boys.
Yeah. Texans favored by 4.5 points.
What?
Coming into Sunday. Yeah, that makes sense. Injury report. I'll look that up right now.
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now.
What is the most interesting non-Stefon Diggs storyline you're looking forward to this weekend?
I'm gonna say the Vikings secondary against Texans are only favored by 2 now. If that makes a little bit more sense, even though the Vikings are.
I wrote the outline yesterday morning, so forgive me.
It's shifted, I guess. Dallas Turner shift. Or I think Joe Mixon might be out actually. But the Vikings secondary against the Texans receivers, because the Texans have 3 very good receivers with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stefon Diggs. Like Diggs is like the second or third option on the Texans. I believe Nico Collins is leading the league in receiving so far this year. I think he has like over 250 yards already. And he's definitely CJ Stroud's favorite target. So I'm curious to see how they, defend that, because they did well last week against Debo and Brandon Ayuk, mostly because I don't think they gave Brock Purdy really any time to even think about. Did he even throw downfield? I don't think he did.
Not too much.
And they shut down Malik Neighbors in week 1, 2, but that's all the Giants really have, so they only have to worry about him. But with the Texans, there's 3 guys. So I think I'll be interested to see how that goes. Stephon Gilmore's been playing well so far. Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus had an interception. Harrison Smith had a pick in week 1. Shaq Griffin I think Shaq Griffin's only allowed 2 catches for like 14 yards this year, but I don't know if he's really even been targeted that much. I'll be curious to see if they go after Byron Murphy, because I would probably say he's, oddly enough, like maybe the weakest part of that secondary when he's on the field between him or Shaq Griffin. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes, and then just I don't remember if you picked this or not, but I'll just say like the Vikings offensive line against the Texans defensive line too is going to be interesting to see.
Looking at the injury report right now, Fridays is not out yet as we
Right,
record this at noon Central Time. But Jordan Addison missed both days of practice. He's
not
probably not going to play. Dallas Turner already said he is out. He said the plan is just to kind of rehab it this week and hopefully be ready to go for next week's game against the Packers. Chris Boyd revenge game. He got a limited practice in, so it looks like he's going to be good. Also, the Texans running game. Joe Mixon had that ankle injury on Sunday night. I was surprised when, people were talking
came
like he
back
was
in.
going to play, but
Yeah,
it's a hip drop tackle, which officials don't seem. I wonder if it's just like a rebellion by the officials. Like, we're not calling that shit. We can barely.
that's how Addison got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the second one. Damian Pierce also. Wrestling fans know why I'm saying that very carefully. Damian Pierce is out. It looks like he's going to be out too because he DNP'd on Wednesday.
Cam Akers.
Thursday, so
You start.
Cam Akers revenge game. So many revenge games. I was looking up the thing while you were talking. So I think the most interesting non-Stefon Diggs storyline I'm looking forward to this weekend is if the Vikings can keep up their physicality. In 2022, teams were 0-15 after playing the 49ers because they beat you up. They kicked your ass. Yeah. 2023 was a little bit better. They were 7-8, but still, it's not a winning record. The Jets beat the Titans in week 2, and they beat a bad Patriots. The Patriots are going to be plucky. They're going to be a pain in the ass for some teams, but I don't know. That whole broadcast was weird.
They beat the Bengals.
The Jets have had so much to overcome, and look at Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh.
Well, it wasn't any worse than the Monday night Eagles broadcast that was going on with Jason Kelce in there, all like in the booth for like half the game.
Do you hate Jason Kelce?
I do not have any problem with I know you are not a big fan of Travis Kelce. I feel like I'm one of the few.
His name's Travie, okay.
I feel like I'm one of the few people that
like my heart.
That doesn't mind them. I feel like they have a lot of like unique insight to offer because Kelce's with like the best quarterback in the NFL, Travis is, and then Jason, he offered like there aren't a lot of offensive linemen that are analysts, and I know Mark Schlereth was, but like Jason Kelce was just in there, so he knows more about like the modern stuff. I think he's just a victim of, and this happens a lot, where guys retire, and then every advertiser, every network wants to put them front and center, and I can't blame Jason Kelce because he's retired, and he's like, "You're going to give me money to do this?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." So like, I think it'll, because like, look at what was it, like Baker Mayfield when the Browns went to the playoffs after that one year, and he was like in a ton of commercials, and everyone's like, "What? What was going on?" So I have no problem with them, but like the way that he's being used, I think is just, it's like another example of whenever Tim Tebow was the hot topic back in the day, like
saturation.
Yeah, it's oversaturated.
Yeah. And I think like you mentioned, I think he's very smart when it comes to the game. And I think like if he wanted to do the booth thing, and I don't think he wants to, I think he just wants to do the studio thing because there's a lot less prep that goes into it. I did get a chuckle out of him when Joe Buck's like, "Well, we'd love to have you a little bit into the fourth," and he goes, "Yeah, but the beer's downstairs."
Yeah. They have a beer, I think, too, the Kelce brothers.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, not that people like to talk about this, but network executives and advertisers know if they get one Kelce, they're probably going to get a section of the fan base of another Kelce who also happens to root for the biggest musician in the world. So that plays into it as well. Whether people, I do enjoy Jason Kelce's wife, though. I think she's like just like a normal person, and she's like her sister-in-law might be Taylor Swift, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's why people like them so much, is because they seem like overall normal people. Yeah. Their mom goes to games and wears half jerseys of them, and I don't know. Maybe it's just the Travis
They go
Kelce
to the
oversaturation.
Didn't Kelsey go to he went to the Bills playoff game last year, right? And he was like in the tailgate.
He's just getting hammered in the suite.
Everyone's like, I wonder if he retired. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he retired.
Running around Vegas in a Rey Mysterio mask and overalls.
Yeah, I think he retired.
But yeah, I mean, that physicality is going to be something. I mean, the Vikings had a harder training camp. They were more physical, and they have more guys on the injury report than they usually do at this point of the year. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, can this physical style play hold up against a team that's very similar to what they saw against the 49ers the week before?
Well, yeah, D'Amico Ryans comes from the Niners, so he wants to kind of run a similar scheme and mentality. Maybe this year the theme will be, though, teams will lose after they play the Vikings because the Vikings are so physical. Like the Giants lost last week. That had a lot to do with playing the Vikings, probably, and not because the Giants suck. But yeah. So yeah, I'm also curious to see if the Vikings can keep up, with their rushing attack too, because they've run the ball really well the first 2 weeks with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, as well. So Blake Brandel's played really well in the middle there, even at Ingram. So can they continue to run the ball? Because that'll just take more pressure off of Sam Darnold, and he can run play action and throw more 97-yard touchdown passes.
Yeah, that's all you have to do is throw a 97-yard. Yeah. The Vikings are undefeated when they throw a 97-yard touchdown pass.
Well, Jefferson called it too. He's in the end zone. We're going to go 99 again.
There you go.
He knows.
He knows, even with that quad bruise. I am very interested to see how he
he's fine.
Hopefully.
Give him a painkiller.
The bruise, what did Herb Brooks say in Miracle? The leg's a hell of a long way from the heart. Candy ass.
Yeah. Just don't let the Chargers doctors hear it, okay?
What is Nick Paparesta doing in the Vikings? Like, no, go serve the Twins. Go serve the Twins.
What are you doing here?
No. What matchup will decide Sunday's game? Did I already ask that?
Yeah.
I think I said what matchup you're looking forward to. I think there's
similar questions. So, the secondary of the Vikings against the Texans receivers. I think it'll probably really come down to the trenches, though, on both sides. The Vikings have done well pressuring Daniel Jones, and they did well pressuring Brock Purdy last week with a lot of times only 4-man rushes. It'll hurt not having Dallas Turner out there, but Patrick Jones has been playing really well these first 2 games. Jonathan Grenard's been getting a lot of pressures. Van Ginkel has been playing great. And they've got a lot of different ways they can still get to the quarterback without Dallas Turner. And Turner I think you mentioned it in the article you wrote for the Vikings. He was really just a specialist at this point. So it's all right. They can have some guys fill in for that for now, and they'll be okay. But yeah, and then on the other side, you got to see if the Vikings offensive line can protect Sam Darnold, because then I think if they can't, that's when, maybe old Sam Darnold makes an appearance and fumbles the ball or throws a bad interception. But I don't know. I'm curious to see if this game actually turns into a blowout, oddly enough, because the Vikings destroyed the Giants. They should have beat the Niners by double digits last week, but Aaron Jones fumbled on the goal line. So, I'm curious because the Texans, they barely beat the Colts, who don't seem like they're that good. And they barely beat the Bears, who have no offense. So they're playing a Vikings team inside US Bank Stadium that has an above average offense and a very good defense. So I'm curious to see if it's a blowout or not. I don't know. Then what happens? Then what are people going to say? They move the Vikings up in one spot in power rankings because they beat the Texans, who are in the AFC South, so they're not that good.
I heard. I was listening to the Audible. I enjoyed the Audible. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite podcasts, football podcasts I listen to, and they were mentioning Texans and Packers Super Bowl, and I'm like, what the fuck have the Packers done? Like, they didn't look good in Brazil. And okay, the turf, whatever. Like, you want to use that as an excuse, fine. Jordan Love's half Brett Favre, half Aaron Rodgers, so he's back in 1 week from an MCL sprain, I guess. But I mean, they ran the fucking wing tee last week.
And 53 times.
Like, it's like Matt LaFleur, he's such a good quarterback developer. He got a win out of Malik Willis. No, he didn't. He hit him. He pulled Mike Zimmer. He could have put Malik Willis in the broom closet like Mike Zimmer did. And
the Colts could have
like,
put 10 guys in the box, and they probably would have won.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever, man.
Who are they playing this week? Who are the Packers got?
Packers are playing Titans.
Yeah. Oh,
Malik Willis revenge game.
What will Levis do terribly awful in this game? Oh my god.
Did you see the I think it's like a clip of like a mobile Madden game, and it's like Anthony Richardson getting like tackled to the ground, and he just throws like a 50-yard underhand bomb, and it said like, this is Will Levis on every play. Just I can make it.
I mean, Anthony Richardson, it's kind of like that too, but he's got a strong arm, so we don't
never trust a dude who puts mayo in his coffee. Never.
No, he's never going to live that down.
But he's leaning into it and getting a bag for it.
Doesn't he have a perfume or cologne or whatever?
Something. He's got a endorsement with Hellman's, so get that money while you can. Turnover battle for me though.
Yeah.
The Vikings have to win the turnover battle. They haven't trailed in a game yet either. Which is kind of an interesting stat. So if they do fall behind, what happens to Sam Darnold?
Are they undefeated when they tie or win the turnover battle?
They are 19-0. The streak. Not like Undertaker's streak, but whatever. That's pretty much what I'm looking to. What's your prediction for Sunday? We'll go straight to that.
I'm going to stick with what I said on Monday, which is 31-27 Vikings. Yep, that's what I'm sticking to.
I think I said I'd withhold my opinion, so I haven't said this yet, but I'm going to say Vikings 23, Texans 20 with a Will Reichard game-winning field goal, because I think this is going to be not battle. A defensive game. It's going to be a battle, right? I think it's going to be close. I think the Texans are a very good team. I think without their running game, because I mean, Cam Akers on 2 bad Achilles. I mean, he's looked good. Probably wants to gash the Vikings for flunking that physical, but
just as much as Cam Akers knows what the Vikings do, the Vikings know what Cam Akers does. So
run a 4.640. Yeah. Sorry.
We haven't even talked about we haven't even talked about the biggest X factor for Sunday, which is that the Texans just signed Irv Smith Jr.
What do you know?
Exactly.
What do you know?
Well, the Vikings signed like some special teams Texans linebacker too, so they're doing the same thing. It's so obvious when teams do that. They're like, "Oh, we just signed the
Sean Mannion."
Yeah.
What do you know about Mike Zimmer's offense?
I think I was listening to O-line committee with Searles and who else is on there? What's the other offensive lineman?
Alex Boone.
Yeah. But Jeremiah Searles was talking about how he got traded from the Chargers to the Vikings. I think it was 2015. And the Vikings brought him like in their office or whatever, and it's like, "All right, tell us everything you know." And he was like, "What?" He's like, I don't want to do this.
There's a car battery, and there's like a pool of water in the car.
Like, what is Phil Rivers stuck at? Pulling out. No, but I'm glad you didn't hear that.
No. It's like when Kane tried to fry Shane McMahon's testicles with a car battery back in the day.
Attitude era.
Yeah. On that note, what's going on at the Viking Age?
We'll be getting ready for the game on Sunday. We'll be recapping the game on Sunday, probably right during the game, before and after. And then commenting on whatever comes out of the game. Will the Vikings be 3-0? I think the last time they were 3-0 was also 2016, because I believe they started 5-0 that year, and then they finished 8-8. So that was fun. So yeah, and then who do they have They have the Packers in week 4. Is that home or away?
Packers in
Is that
week
away?
4 at Lambeau Field.
Ooh, Aaron Jones revenge game.
I mean, he's pretty much Aaron. Oh, I thought you were talking about Jordan Love, but half Aaron right now. Here's a guy. Look at he's Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Bart Starr. Yeah.
The good thing about the Vikings, people thinking the Vikings are going to suck this year is like all their games are at noon.
Yeah.
So
Kirk Cousins is like, really?
Yeah, right. The year out, and he's got the Chiefs on Sunday night. So
yeah, I was wrong last week. By the way, I guess that game's in Atlanta. I don't know where I am. My partner had the papers in Mexico.
I don't. The jury's still out on Kirk Cousins for me in Atlanta. I was listening to, I think it was the Manning cast, and they were talking through that drive, and they're like, "This is like the easiest thing Kirk Cousins could do, right?" And Matt Ryan and Peyton Manning were like, "Yeah, because you're running your easiest plays in the 2-minute drill, plays you've been running since training camp," and so it was like no thinking, which is when Kirk Cousins is at his best, when he doesn't have to think. Still threw the ball in bounds when they had no timeouts, but they were able to come back. But I don't know how that's going to go against the Chiefs. Watch them beat the Chiefs, and everyone will be like, "Look what you did! You should have re-signed him."
Kirk Cousins, he still looks like he's throwing a shot put out there.
But you know what? If the Falcons are good, we all know what's going to happen in the playoffs.
Okay. Yes, sickos meme. Well, that's all the time we have for the Viking Age today. He is Adam Patrick at Adam Patrick NFL. I am Chris Schad at the real Chris Schad. Threads, X. You do the gram, Instagram.
Yeah.
I do the gram. Very rare. I'm very choosy with what I put on the gram because usually it's like SDSU photos, and if I venture out of the fishbowl, I post something.
Take whatever graphics I put on the Viking Age and put them on my own account because we don't have a Viking Age Instagram account. So
yeah, for sure. But we do this every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. And we're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. For Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. This has been the Viking Age Podcast.